Before I share my story, let me ask you, what would you do if the two people you trusted most, your husband and your boss, were hiding the same secret? I thought I was living a normal life, balancing work and marriage, believing the late nights and missed dinners were just part of the grind. But the night I saw my husband out with my boss, everything I thought I knew about loyalty, love, and ambition shattered. This isn't just a story about infidelity. It's about the moment you realize your world is built on lies, and the courage it takes to rebuild, even when the truth costs you everything. So settle in, because what I uncovered changed not just my marriage, but the way I see myself forever. The night I saw my husband on a date with my boss, I realized I'd been working overtime for all the wrong reasons. It started with a text. "Sorry, babe, working late again, don't wait up." I was used to it by now. My husband, Daniel, was a project manager at a tech firm, and the last 6 months had been a blur of late nights, early mornings, and weekends spent hunched over his laptop. I told myself it was just a phase, that he was working hard for our future, that the distance between us was temporary. I was busy, too. I just landed a promotion at the marketing agency where I'd worked for 5 years. My new boss, Miranda, was sharp, ambitious, and intimidating in a way that made me want to impress her. She was the kind of woman who wore heels to the grocery store and never had a hair out of place. I admired her, even as I sometimes resented the way she pushed me to do more, be more, give more. Daniel and I had been married for 7 years. We met in college, fell in love over late-night study sessions and cheap pizza, and built a life together in a small house on the edge of the city. We had plans, travel, maybe kids, a bigger house someday. But lately, it felt like we were living parallel lives, passing each other in the hallway, sharing quick kisses and even quicker conversations. I tried to keep us connected. I planned date nights, left notes in his lunch, sent flirty texts in the middle of the day. Sometimes he responded, sometimes he didn't. I told myself he was just tired, that he'd come back to me when the project was over. But deep down, I felt the chill of something I couldn't name. The weeks blurred together. I woke up early, made coffee, packed Daniel's lunch, and headed to work before the sun was up. Miranda was always the first one in, her office light glowing like a beacon. She'd wave me in, hand me a stack of files, and launch into a list of things that needed to be done by noon. I worked hard, hoping she'd notice, hoping she'd see how much I wanted to succeed. Sometimes she'd smile, offer a word of praise, but mostly she just pushed me harder. I told myself it was worth it, that I was building something for myself, for us. Daniel and I barely saw each other. He'd come home after I was asleep, leave before I woke up. On weekends, he'd disappear into his office, claiming he needed to catch up on work. I missed him. I missed us. One Friday, I decided to surprise him. I left work early, picked up his favorite takeout, and drove to his office. But when I got there, the parking lot was empty. His car was gone. I called him. He didn't answer. I texted. No reply. I sat in the car, staring at the empty space where his car should have been, my heart pounding. I told myself he was probably running an errand, that he'd be back soon. But the doubt lingered. That night, Daniel came home late. He smelled like cologne and wine, his shirt wrinkled, his eyes bright. "Long day," he said, kissing me on the forehead. "Sorry I missed your call. We had a last-minute meeting." I nodded, forcing a smile. "Did you get my text?" He shrugged, dropping his bag by the door. "Must have missed it. My phone died." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to trust him. But something in his voice made me pause. The next week, the pattern repeated. More late nights, more missed calls, more excuses. I started to pay closer attention. I checked his phone when he left it unattended, but found nothing suspicious. I watched him at dinner, nodding every glance, every too long silence. One afternoon, Miranda called me into her office. She was in a good mood, her eyes sparkling. "Big plans this weekend?" she asked, smiling. I shook my head. "Just hopping to spend some time with Daniel. He's been so busy lately." She nodded, her smile fading. "Work can be hard on a marriage. You have to make time for each other." I left her office feeling unsettled, as if there was something she wasn't saying. The following Thursday, Miranda announced a last-minute team dinner at a trendy new restaurant downtown. "It's important for morale," she said, her eyes lingering on me a little too long. I was exhausted, but I didn't want to seem ungrateful or uncommitted, so I agreed to go. I texted Daniel, telling him I'd be home late. He replied almost instantly. "No worries, working late too, love you." After dinner, I decided to walk home. The night was warm, the city alive with music and laughter. As I passed a small bistro, I glanced through the window and froze. There, in a corner booth, sat Daniel. He was laughing, his hand resting on the table, his eyes locked on the woman across from him. Miranda. My boss. They were leaning in close, sharing a bottle of wine, their heads bent together in a way that made my stomach twist. I watched as Miranda reached across the table, her fingers brushing Daniel's hand. He smiled, the same smile he used to give me. I felt sick. I ducked out of sight, my heart pounding, my mind racing. I waited until they left, then followed at a distance. I watched as they walked down the street, Miranda's arm linked through Daniel, their laughter echoing in the night. I went home, locked the door, and sat in the dark, replaying what I'd seen. The truth was undeniable. My husband and my boss were having an affair. The next morning, I called in sick. I couldn't face Miranda, couldn't face the team, couldn't face the lie my life had become. Daniel texted, asking if I was okay. I ignored him. I spent the day gathering evidence. I checked Daniel's phone records, his credit card statements, his email. I found dinner reservations, hotel bookings, messages from Miranda. I took screenshots, printed everything, made a folder labeled truth. That night, I confronted Daniel. I laid the evidence on the table, my hands shaking. He tried to deny it at first, but the proof was overwhelming. He broke down, confessing everything, how it started, how he never meant to hurt me, how he was confused. I listened, my heart breaking, my anger growing. "You didn't just cheat on me," I said, my voice cold. "You betrayed me with the one person who could ruin my career." He tried to apologize, but I was done listening. I went to HR the next day, handed them the folder, and told them everything. Miranda was suspended pending an investigation. The office buzzed with rumors, but I held my head high. I had nothing to hide. Daniel moved out. I filed for divorce. The house felt empty, but also lighter, as if a storm had finally passed. My friends rallied around me. My family called every day. I started seeing a counselor, working through the pain, the anger, the grief. I learned to forgive, not for Daniel or Miranda, but for myself. I learned that healing wasn't about forgetting, but about letting go. The weeks passed, and slowly I began to heal. The house felt different, quieter, but also lighter. I started to find joy in small things again, a cup of coffee on the porch, a walk in the park, a good book at bedtime. I wasn't the same woman I'd been before I saw Daniel with Miranda. I was stronger, wiser, more compassionate with myself and with the people I loved. The days after Daniel moved out were a blur of awkward conversations and quiet strength. I told my closest friends the truth, but I didn't share the details with everyone. I didn't want to be the subject of office gossip, but I also refused to hide in shame. I went to work, kept my head high, and did my job as best I could. Miranda's absence was a shockwave through the agency. People whispered in the break room, speculating about why she was suddenly on leave. Some looked at me with pity, others with curiosity, a few with admiration. I ignored the stares and focused on my work, determined not to let her take anything else from me. My family was supportive, but the questions were endless. My mother called every night, her voice full of worry. "Are you eating? Are you sleeping? Do you want me to come stay with you?" I reassured her as best I could, but the truth was I was barely holding it together. Nights were the hardest. The house felt too big, too quiet. I missed Daniel even after everything. I missed the way he used to make me laugh, the way he'd hold me when I was sad, the way we'd dream about the future together. I missed the life I thought we had. But I also felt a strange sense of relief. The lies were over. The pretending was done. I could finally breathe. One Saturday, my best friend, Carla, came over with coffee and pastries. We sat on the porch, watching the world go by, talking about everything and nothing. "You did the right thing," she said, her voice firm. "You stood up for yourself, that takes guts." I nodded, but the doubt lingered. Did I, or did I just blow up my whole life? She squeezed my hand. "You told the truth, that's never wrong." Daniel tried to reach out. He called, sent texts, left voicemails full of apologies and promises. He wanted to talk, to explain, to see if we could work things out. I ignored most of his messages, but one night after a particularly lonely day, I answered the phone. He sounded tired, defeated. "I'm sorry, Claire. I know I hurt you. I know I ruined everything. I wish I could take it all back." I listened, but I didn't respond. I didn't have the energy to comfort him, not anymore. "I hope you find happiness," I said finally, "but I can't be the one to give it to you." He was silent for a long moment. "I understand, I'm sorry." At work, the investigation dragged on. HR called me in for meetings, asking for details, for evidence, for anything that could help them make a decision. I handed over everything I had, then tried to move on. I focused on my projects, on my team, on rebuilding my reputation. When Miranda's suspension became permanent, there was a sense of closure, but also a sense of loss. She had been a mentor, a role model, someone I'd looked up to. Now she was just another person who had let me down. I started seeing a counselor, working through the pain, the anger, the grief. I learned to forgive, not for Daniel or Miranda, but for myself. I learned that healing wasn't about forgetting, but about letting go. The weeks passed, and slowly I began to heal. The house felt different, quieter, but also lighter. I started to find joy in small things again: a cup of coffee on the porch, a walk in the park, a good book at bedtime. I wasn't the same woman I'd been before I saw Daniel with Miranda. I was stronger, wiser, more compassionate with myself and with the people I loved. Spring arrived, and with it, a sense of gentle renewal. I started running in the mornings, feeling my body grow stronger with every step. I joined a book club, made new friends, started dreaming again. I got a new job at a different agency, one where I was valued for my work, not my willingness to look the other way. I found joy in small things: a cup of coffee on the porch, a walk in the park, a good book at bedtime. I wasn't the same woman I'd been before I saw Daniel with Miranda. I was stronger, wiser, more compassionate with myself and with the people I loved. I knew that life would never be perfect, that there would always be pain and loss and disappointment. But I also knew that I could survive, that I could rebuild, that I could find joy in the small, everyday moments. One afternoon, I ran into Miranda at the grocery store. She looked different, tired, older, her confidence dimmed. She avoided my eyes, but I walked over anyway. "Miranda," I said, my voice steady. She looked up, her expression wary. "Claire, I'm sorry." I nodded. "I know. I hope you find what you're looking for." She blinked, surprised, then nodded. "You too." I walked away, feeling lighter than I had in months. Daniel tried to make amends. He apologized over and over, sent flowers, wrote letters, asked if we could try again. I listened, but I knew I couldn't go back. Too much had been broken, too much trust lost. I wished him well, told him I hoped he'd find happiness, but I closed the door on that chapter of my life. My friends rallied around me. My family called every day. I started seeing a counselor, working through the pain, the anger, the grief. I learned to forgive, not for Daniel or Miranda, but for myself. I learned that healing wasn't about forgetting, but about letting go. I started writing again: journals, letters, stories for myself. I wrote about forgiveness, about starting over, about the way love can survive even the deepest wounds. I wrote about the lessons I'd learned, about the hope I still carried in my heart. I reconnected with old friends, joined a yoga class, started volunteering at the library on weekends. I let myself dream again, of travel, of new love, of a life that was bigger and brighter than the one I'd left behind. One evening, as I sat on the porch watching the sunset, my best friend Carla joined me, her laughter filling the air. "Are you happy, Claire?" she asked, her voice soft. I smiled, brushing a strand of hair from my face. I am Carla, I really am. She grinned, her eyes shining. Me too. I hugged her close, feeling the steady beat of my own heart. I knew there would still be hard days, still be moments of doubt and regret. But I also knew that I was strong, that I was brave, that I was enough, just as I was. I wasn't the same woman I'd been before I saw Daniel with Miranda. I was stronger, wiser, more compassionate with myself and with the people I loved. I knew that life would never be perfect, that there would always be pain and loss and disappointment. But I also knew that I could survive, that I could rebuild, that I could find joy in the small, everyday moments. I looked around at the life I'd created. The house filled with light, the garden blooming, the laughter of friends and family, and felt a quiet sense of peace. I was still here, I was still standing, and I was ready for whatever came next. Summer brought a new rhythm to my life. The days were longer, the air warmer, and I found myself spending more time outdoors, gardening, hiking, even taking weekend trips to the lake with Carla and a few friends. I realized how much I'd missed the simple pleasure of being present, of laughing without worry, of waking up with a sense of possibility instead of dread. I started taking a painting class at the community center. At first, I felt awkward, my brushstrokes hesitant, but the teacher encouraged us to let go of perfection and just enjoy the process. I painted sunrises, wildflowers, and sometimes just bold, messy colors that made me feel alive. I hung my favorite piece in the hallway, a riot of gold and blue and green, and every time I passed it, I smiled. It was proof that I could create something beautiful out of chaos. Mia thrived too. She made new friends at summer camp, learned to swim, and even joined a soccer team. She still asked about her dad sometimes, but the questions grew less frequent, the pain less sharp. We talked openly about feelings, about change, about how families can look different but still be filled with love. One Saturday, Daniel came by to pick up Mia for the weekend. He looked healthier, more relaxed, as if he'd finally accepted the consequences of his choices. He thanked me for being civil, for putting Mia first, for not turning her against him. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness," he said quietly, "but I'm grateful for your strength." I nodded, feeling a sense of closure. "We're both doing our best, Daniel. That's all we can do." I also found myself opening up to new possibilities. I went on a few dates, nothing serious, just coffee or a walk in the park. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed the conversation, the laughter, the feeling of being seen as someone new. I wasn't looking for another Daniel. I was looking for myself. Carla cheered me on, teasing me about my second act and reminding me that it was never too late to start over. We planned a girls' weekend at the beach, just the two of us, and spent hours talking about everything and nothing, letting the sound of the waves wash away the last of the old pain. One evening, as Mia and I sat on the porch watching fireflies, she leaned against me and sighed. "Do you think we'll ever have a big family again, Mom?" I hugged her close. "Maybe not the way we used to, but we have each other, and we have friends who feel like family. Sometimes that's even better." She smiled, her eyes shining in the twilight. "I like our life, Mom. I like who we are." I felt tears prick my eyes, but this time they were happy tears. "Me too, sweetheart, me too." I realized that healing wasn't a destination, it was a journey. Some days the past still hurt. Some days I missed what I'd lost. But most days I felt grateful for what I'd found. My own strength, my daughter's resilience, the quiet joy of a life rebuilt on truth. I started writing again, stories, poems, letters to myself and to Mia. I wrote about forgiveness, about hope, about the way love can survive even the deepest wounds. I wrote about the lessons I'd learned, about the dreams I still carried in my heart. As the summer faded into fall, I looked around at the life I'd created. The house filled with light, the garden blooming, the laughter of friends and family, and felt a quiet sense of peace. I was still here, I was still standing, and I was ready for whatever came next. As autumn settled in, I found myself reflecting on how much had changed in just a year. The leaves outside my window turned gold and crimson, and the air grew crisp. I started baking again, apple pies, cinnamon rolls, the kinds of recipes that filled the house with warmth and made Mia smile when she came home from school. One afternoon, I received a letter in the mail. The handwriting was familiar Daniel's. I hesitated before opening it, unsure if I wanted to revisit old wounds. But curiosity won out. Inside, he wrote about his regrets, about the choices he'd made, about how he'd let ambition and temptation cloud his judgment. He thanked me for the years we'd shared, for the family we'd built, for the way I'd handled everything with dignity. He said he hoped I'd find happiness, that I'd never doubt my worth again. I sat at the kitchen table, reading his words, and realized I'd already forgiven him. Not because he deserved it, but because I deserved peace. I folded the letter and tucked it away, not as a keepsake, but as a reminder of how far I'd come. At work, I was thriving. My new agency felt like home. My boss, a kind woman named Evelyn, encouraged me to take risks, to lead projects, to trust my instincts. I earned a promotion, and for the first time, I felt truly valued for my ideas and my work ethic, not just for my willingness to stay late or keep secrets. I mentored a new hire, a young woman named Priya, who reminded me of myself when I first started out, eager, nervous, full of questions. I told her, "Don't ever let anyone make you feel small. You're stronger than you think." She smiled, and I saw a spark of confidence in her eyes. Mia continued to blossom. She brought home art projects, stories about her friends, and even a certificate for most kind-hearted in her class. We celebrated with ice cream and a movie night, just the two of us. She told me, "I'm proud of you, Mom, you're my hero." I hugged her tight, feeling a wave of gratitude. "You're my hero too, Mia. We're a team." I also found myself reconnecting with old friends, people I'd lost touch with during the chaos of my marriage. We met for coffee, shared stories, laughed about the past. I realized how much I'd missed these connections, how much I needed them. Carla and I kept our tradition of Sunday brunch. We tried new recipes, swapped books, and sometimes just sat in comfortable silence, watching the world go by. She told me, "You're not just surviving, Claire, you're living. I hope you see that." I did. For the first time in a long time, I truly did. One evening, as I walked through the neighborhood, I ran into Miranda. She looked different, softer, more humble. She apologized again, this time with tears in her eyes. "I lost everything, Claire, my job. My reputation, my self-respect. I'm sorry for what I did to you." I nodded, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. "I hope you find peace, Miranda. I really do." We parted ways, and I realized I no longer felt anger. Just a quiet acceptance that some people are meant to be lessons, not lifelong friends. As the holidays approached, I decorated the house with Mia, stringing lights and baking cookies. We invited friends over, filled the rooms with laughter and music. I looked around at the life I'd rebuilt and felt a deep, abiding sense of pride. I wasn't perfect. I still had hard days, moments of doubt, flashes of grief, but I was whole. I was enough. And I was finally truly free. Sometimes the people we trust most are the ones who break us the deepest. I never imagined that a single night would unravel my marriage, my career, and my sense of self. But life has a way of teaching us that even the strongest bonds can be tested, and that sometimes the only way forward is through the truth, no matter how much it hurts. If you've ever discovered a secret that changed everything, or if you've ever had to rebuild your life from the ground up, I hope you know you're not alone. Healing isn't quick, and it isn't easy. But with time, honesty, and a little bit of grace, it is possible. Sometimes the real strength is in letting go, not just of the people who hurt you, but of the guilt and shame you never deserved to carry. Would you have confronted your partner or kept the secret for the sake of your family? Have you ever had to start over after a betrayal? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe and share it with someone who might need a little hope tonight. Thank you for listening and for being part of this family. Until next time, take care of yourself, and remember, even after the deepest betrayal, you can still choose to begin again.